You should be watching.
The wonderfully weird world of Dragon Ball third-party action figures, or however I decide to title this once this video comes out. What inspired this video is the last third-party roundup I did. Go check that out after you watch this one, of course. Somebody commented they was wondering when the Black Hole Toys Super Saiyan 4s were going to come out. So if you don't already know, Black Hole Toys did a whole kind of what if fan fiction AF wave, or they didn't do it, they revealed it. And honestly, I don't know what's going on with Black Hole Toys. And when I responded to that comment, I was like, oh, well, Black Hole Toys is dissolved. And then I said, wait a second. I went on a hobby model store, not that long ago. Matter of fact, for that particular video, and they had the Omni God Goku saying that, you know, on December 23rd, they had said that the figure or that kit was going to come out soon. So that means that Black Hole Toys clearly is still doing projects, but they definitely had some stuff canceled. So that got me to thinking, like if I'm gonna recommend third-party stuff, where would I start? Because of the volatility, and then that got me spiraling out of control with my thoughts in terms of third-party, because third-party is extremely volatile. There's no telling what could happen sometimes, even with some of the, you know, best and most consistent. That, like, a good example would be DF, and this is just going to be a Yapathon slash a series of different topics or things that have been on my mind in regards to third party. So, you know, sit back, relax, or, you know, if you don't, it is what it is. But I know some people like to put what I have to say on at work, and then you know work through it or listen to it while they work. Regardless, the volatility of third party, like all of a sudden, like something, you know, Demonical Fit, I'm going to use them as an example a lot in this video, but also it's not just Demonical Fit that does this, as much as Demonical Fit gets shipped for it. But Demonical Fit at one point had a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks head sculpt, you know, on the horizon. It was supposed to be a kit or what have you, and it just never saw the light of day. Like, it was just up for pre-order for mad long, and we got no info on it, only to find out like 2 or 3 years later that it just had been quietly canceled. Now, of course, this is why, you know, some people would prefer not to pre-order, particularly with third party, because it's just too unpredictable, and that unpredictability could be based on a myriad of different things. But typically, like something that could happen, like for example, moving off of DF with the volatility, staying on the topic of volatility, let's take DKO for example, right? DKO had that set that was going to have the base Goku black head and the Super Saiyan blue head sculpt, right? And it looked good. But then Tamashii revealed their Super Saiyan blue Goku, and they immediately canceled the project. Because as my good man Cyrus would say, they don't want to get slapped into the dirt. And, you know, that's understandable, but like, what if you were really looking forward to that project? What if you had already put money down? Now you gotta go get a refund. You gotta go through all these troubles just to, you know, get your money back or what have you. If you even decided to pre-order it. I personally don't necessarily pre-order a whole lot of stuff, particularly from third party, even just in general, honestly. And then there's the idea of what you call it, right? I said, you know, the volatility of it. But something could get canceled, not be like one that could get slapped into the dirt, like I just said, my good man Cyrus would say. But also, the other part to it is sometimes the fan feedback is a bit too critical. Now we could look at RR Studio, Red Ribbon Studio, with their Cell figure. Cell is a character that, or Perfect Cell specifically, is a character that basically, no pun intended, has to be perfect. So the expectation for that figure to be good, even the slightest, you know, miscue or misstep, it's a wrap automatically. People are gonna be like, yo, that shit trash, that shit whack, what have you. And then there's other people that's like, no, like, you keep on working on it. But that pressure, and that brings me to the next thing. One thing that's weird about third party is because they have a closer ear to the ground, you know, they can give people more of what they want. But at the same time, they kind of don't. Let me explain. Like, what I mean by that is this. Funny enough, third party has more free reign than I would say official, being, you know, Tamashii Nation's SH Figure Arts Dragon Ball line. They have more free reign to just do whatever they want. Whatever project that they feel is going to be successful or what have you. But rarely ever do I feel like they fully take advantage of that. Some companies do with certain projects, but there's a reason why we keep on getting, you know, Goku head sculpts, okay, Vegeta head sculpt, okay, Trunks head sculpt, okay, Gohan head sculpt. Of course, the main characters are going to be focused on because it's easy and safe to do, right? But then again, we have weird situations like behind the scenes, right? Like I said, this is going to be a Yapathon because I find a lot of the behaviors in third party a little weird sometimes. But for example, for a long time, people were complaining about not having a Gogeta figure. And for a long time behind the scenes, what I was hearing is that, okay, Gogeta's like Toei's baby. They really don't want to risk making that figure and get, you know, tracked down or sued or something like that. And then all of a sudden, all it took is for like one person to be, or one company to be bold enough, and that was all she wrote, right? Now we having all these Gogeta figures. Now, to be fair, it's only been like 2 companies thus far, and that is specifically with Future Reborn and the Dragon Ball Super Gogeta. Each of those companies respectively being, if you don't already know for whatever reason, Kami One, formerly known as Taunton Art Toys, and we'll get back to name changes at a later point in this video. But in the other company being Demoniacal Fits, Gogeta, of course, Fusion Reborn and Super version as well, right? All of a sudden, both of these companies did it, and then the strange part about that is, all right, because, you know, all the murmurings I heard about, okay, that's Toei's baby, that is, you know, Bandai might be on it when it comes to that, and for all that, Bandai really doesn't care that much. And that was yet another comment on a previous video. You can shout yourself out in the comment section, because at the moment I don't have your name in front of me, but it was a person that asked, well, why doesn't Tamashii just sue? And this is, the wonderfully weird world of third party. Because for a long time, y'all know, if you've been here a long time with me on this channel, I'll be like, yo, like Tamashii, third party needs to watch out. They probably not gonna make this particular figure because, oh, you know, they don't want to get sued or what have you. But the longer I go on with collecting from third party and official, I'm convinced that official really doesn't care all that much. And I guess this is more an official, this could be more for the official discussion video, but since it's related to third party, I'll keep it in here. But like, for example, something that somebody responded to in the comment section, I agree with to that comment about why doesn't Tamashii sue, is that ultimately it doesn't really affect the bottom line for Tamashii. Yeah, sure, you're selling these cool looking head sculpts, that's cute. In fact, there was a YouTuber that talked about collecting third party and his conflict with it, because I forgot the gentleman's name. I'll put the link in the description below, but it's a very interesting video where he was talking about third party and him working for like Hasbro, and he was like, you know, he would bring it up to his superiors about, you know, these companies that don't have the official license, like making a head sculpt or some hands, and his superior said, oh, that's cute and all, they still gotta buy our whole figure. Like, it's a cool looking head sculpt, those are some coolly sculpted hands, that's fine, you still gotta buy our the body for our figure. And that's a lot of what Tamashii falls into, right? All right, you got your Games Begin Goku, for example. All right, you don't like the head sculpt, well, RE Customs, or is it DKR? Either way, they coming out with a set of head sculpts that fit perfectly for that era of Goku. You know, I'll have it pop up on the screen. Of course, I'll have subsequent pictures, as long as I don't forget, pop up on the screen, right? But it's just so strange. And then the other strange thing about third party is sometimes the beef that goes on behind the scenes. We don't really know what's going on. Like, for example, Demoniacal Fit, and this is gonna segue into a whole nother thing, right? I'm gonna have to link another person's video in the description below. But basically, Demoniacal Fit's pettiness towards certain companies, and the history of the companies that they've been petty with. And I want y'all to follow me on this, because this is theory, not necessarily confirmed, but I am going to link a video that is auto-dubbed by El Quarto. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but he had a video that was very interesting, and it disseminated some interesting information. Anyways, what I want to say is this. Demoniacal Fit has been petty to two companies throughout their history, right? It's been petty to, of course, more recently, Taunton Art Toys, now known Kami One. And also, back in the day, it was Kong Studio. Now, what's interesting about this is that both of these companies are the only third-party companies that have officially dissolved and rebranded, right? Now, Kong Studio has done this multiple times. They went from Kong Studio to Beast Deity, then Beast Deity to now Anime Mythos. And honestly, they have other aliases such as Lionheart, Devil Eyes. At least those are my assumptions that those are aliases. They're very likely to be aliases. Nothing is officially confirmed, technically speaking. But it's funny, in El Cuarto's video, he says something, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, like Kong Studio is actually an American company that's based in China. And all of a sudden, like, once again, the wonderfully weird world of third party, all of a sudden, some of the decisions that Kong makes made sense. Like, sometimes I felt like Kong would prioritize some of their customers in the West. And I was like, that's kind of strange. If you're a China-based company, Chinese company, why would you prioritize the Western audience over your own people, right? That didn't really make a lot of sense. And then it started to all click about the constant rebranding. And I was like, wait, were they trying to avoid some type of American lawsuit? Now, you, of course, you comment lawyers, y'all might know better than me, of course, what's going, like, how the logistics of that works. But I do find it strange that only two third-party companies have ever really had to rebrand. And being as though that one of them is an American company, I started to side-eye Taunton for a little bit. I ain't gonna front. I started to side-eye Taunton, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if that the two companies that Demoniacal Fit beefed with or was petty towards ended up being two American companies operating out of China? Now, to be fair, the only company I actually heard is like the one that El Cuarto talked about, which is Kong Studio. But I found that very interesting. Like I said, we just flowing right now. And then another thing with third party that's strange is that sometimes, like I mentioned, you can have a ghost cancel for a pre-order, right? On the flip side to that, you could have something be revealed. Hey, like, oh, this company is gonna, for example, do a Moro figure. We see a prototype for it. All right, cool. And then, like a couple months later, the figure's getting released, and it's like, whoa, that was mad fast. But that could be just because of the practice of maybe revealing the figure once they were pretty much almost done with it anyway. So it kind of works out in a way, right? But also, you could pre-order something. Now we're gonna move on to HM Studio. You could pre-order something like from HM Studio, and like for example, the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan head sculpts, right? Those things went up for pre-order like in 2024, I want to say, or something like that. And now we're only now getting people, like customers, with the actual head sculpt in hand. Not no pictures from the studio where we see their fingers and whatnot. This seemed to be actually in the hand of the customers. And it's like, you know, if somebody's first getting into third party, they're like, damn, did I just get cheated? No, you didn't necessarily get cheated. Sometimes it just takes a long time for these things to come out. And what sucks the most, once again, the wonderfully weird world of third party, is that the line of communication can be really bad sometimes. And like, we may not hear updates for mad long, and then all of a sudden we do get updates, and it's like, well, thanks for updating us, but can you please like keep us in a loop? Because people are, you know, worried. Because once again, going back to something like Demoniacal Fit, we have the infamous Future Gohan, right? And to be fair, they're not the only company that's promised a full figure of Future Gohan and just never dropped it. And the thing about that is, like, once again, I'm gonna double back to the Gogeta point. It seemed people talked about Gogeta being like the baby of Tamashi, but it seemed like Future Gohan is the baby of Tamashi. Really, that seemed like the real baby that's being protected, because nobody seems to be really dropping anything Future Gohan related in terms of a figure, and it really is just more or less a Goku body with some minor adjustments, you know, to the sleeve, the boots, of course a new head sculpt, of course, but it's not like it wouldn't be a hard thing to make that figure, but nobody's done it, and it's so strange. Now, of course, we have a bunch of kits coming out now, but we'll see if those ever see the light of day, because at this point, whenever I see something Future Gohan related, yeah, I'll cover it in a news video, but I'm in the back of my mind like, is this actually gonna drop? And sometimes I want to also note that the volatility could be based on the fact that, hey, inside information. Now, what do I mean by inside information? Some of these third parties either have insiders in Tamashii, or perhaps they just have some of their stuff printed and, you know, assembled at the same factories. And so, for example, one of my favorite examples is Demoniacal Fit, like 3 years ago, all of a sudden, now they had showed a render for an adult GT Goku, right? But at this point in time, we hadn't heard about that, seen that render in at least a year or two, maybe 3 years. It had been a long period of time. And the main focus, once again, was Future Gohan. But all of a sudden, with everybody asking for Future Gohan, all of a sudden they want to show off or say, hey, Unexpected Adventure. That was the name of the adult GT Goku. That was the name of the figure. All of a sudden, Unexpected Adventure is coming out, and it's coming soon. And it's like, all right, that's cool and all, but where is Future Gohan? And I was like, who asked for this? Well, and then I had to run it back. I was like, okay, somebody may have wanted this, but why this? Why now? And then like a month later, we get the GT Kid Goku from Tamashii, and I'm like, oh, they're trying to line it up with that. And the volatility of third party in terms of like all of a sudden shift and change. Now all these companies want to make this particular character. Sometimes this is go along with the actual official release that they know is coming out, but we may not be privy to it just yet. So it's so strange. And then also the unprofessionalism in third party sometimes is hilarious. Just the, hey, you stole my idea, you stole my idea. And it's all kind of weird because technically speaking, nobody in third party has any type of right to be like, you stole my idea. I mean, of course you could say, all right, I sculpted this from scratch, but ultimately you don't have the official license to produce this and make money off of it. You're stealing from the people that went through the proper channels to do this, if we're gonna, you know, go there about the stealing thing. But that being said, that's just the wild west that third party is. Anything can happen. And also in this subcategory of volatility, I would also put like something like QC in there. Now QC could be separated into two main things for me personally. Of course, how the figure actually is the figure falling apart, things snapping and breaking. And once again, this goes back to the original question, like who would I recommend if somebody was just getting into third party? Because like I said, it could be the wild west sometimes. And for example, you got a studio like Kong Studio. I'm very fond of Kong Studio, but their QC, if I had to rank them on in comparison to other third parties, they probably have the most inconsistent QC. Not to say they can't produce something with good QC, because I've experienced good QC for them, and the Goku Black Wave that they did, and of course the Broly Wave. But also other people have said, no, this figure is shit, or what have you. Kong Studio sucks, or what have you. And that's their opinion, that's their experience. You can't take away from that. But other than that, with QC, we had something that was brought to my attention one time with somebody that was getting into third party, and that was the fact that they was like, yo, are these paints poisonous? And I was like, I never even bothered to think about that. In my mind, it was just, they making the figures. They already doing something illegal. You're not trying to add on to that. And that's how in my mind it would work. But of course, people could also have the perspective of, oh, they don't have to give a fuck. They could just vanish into thin air, I guess, because they not easily trackable, what have you. But if somebody really wanted to pursue a lawsuit with that, I don't think that juice is worth the squeeze in terms of a third party really cheaping out like that. But that is something I never really thought about, the the regulation aspect of what the materials they have to use, because since Tamashi's officially licensed and it's under Bandai, they gotta be on point with their shit. They can't just do anything. They can't just have any type of figure or just use any type of material that's going to be hazardous to you, because that's a lawsuit and bad publicity that they do not want. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, it was a whole Yapathon. This is just a bunch of things that's been on my mind, especially that some of that information that El Cuarto had disseminated. Once again, you can hear it from the horse's mouth. I'm gonna have the video in the link description, but also it's auto dub, so maybe some of it isn't correctly translated as well, so keep that in mind. But with all this being said, this was different kind of video. I think it's basically a discussion video. Yeah, sort of discussion video, rambling video. Haven't done one of these in a minute. But with all that being said, it's been Bombastic Plastic. Stay fantastic. As always, I appreciate all the support. And until next time, peace.